My name's Paul Clifford. I'm the group editor of the hospitality group at ITP Media Group, which means I oversee the teams who run Caterer Middle East and Hotelier Middle East. This morning, the first panel, quite a broad topic, but it's the future of the region's hospitality industry. Thank you, ATM, for having us and bringing so much talent to the stage today and for the rest of the event. I'm joined by, in alphabetical order, so let's see if I can work this out, Christopher Lund at the far end, no stranger to this event and these stages, Executive Director at Colliers and Head of Hotels for the MENA region. Well, this has worked out quite nicely. Next to Christopher is Mark Kirby. He's Head of Hospitality for Emaar Group, overseeing brands such as Address, the Palace, here in Dubai and expanding now outside of the UAE, which we'll get onto. Also welcome, please, Tim Corden, the Area Senior Vice President for Middle East and Africa region, Radisson Hotel Group. And closest to me, we have Judith Toth, the founder and CEO of Viver Hospitality. She's also the GM of Ink Hotel and Al Jadaf, and the business director of the hospitality school HTMI Switzerland, Dubai, which is part of Ink Hotel, which we'll also get on in a bit. It's pretty interesting. Judith, we'll start with you. Your hotel's new. It's a little bit different to the other guys that we've got here. And you have a school alongside it. Probably puts you in a good position to talk about the future of hospitality. Tell us a little bit about the setup at Ink, if you don't mind, briefly, and then some of the things that you've kind of learned as you've been launching and how you can see your business growing. I know you're particularly interested in kind of digitization and fintech and that kind of thing, so let us know how we're going.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really glad to be here finally on a physical event after the past 2 years of restrictions. And going into the topic of Ink Hotel, since we created this new brand, we thought, why don't we include something else there that is not yet on the market? If you look at examples in Europe or other countries, you see that oftentimes hotel schools or different businesses are part of hotels as an ecosystem and operation together. And here in Dubai or in the UAE, we haven't seen any similar examples yet. So in terms of innovation, creating something new, we thought this is a good way to try it out. And it worked. Luckily, it's been 3 to 6 months of operation by now. In terms of bringing the future of hospitality, there is no better way to get practical training and get students and younger junior colleagues into the market, into the industry. There is no better way than practice.
Yeah.
So I think instead of talking about theory, talking about case studies, talking about taking online courses, people need to go on the ground and actually walk the talk and try it by themselves.
Yeah. And last time we spoke, you were having teething problems with payment systems and this kind of stuff. We found it all quite antiquated, probably too strong, but you found it all quite old-fashioned, and you were expecting to be able to get some real modern pieces of tech and equipment in the hotel that would help you kind of move forward and have a modern, future-looking hotel. And that's got you interested in certain areas. So do you want to tell us a bit about that as well?
Yes, absolutely. So when we last spoke, we talked about our property management system connecting to our accounting systems, channel management, and so on, various different softwares that we are forced to use because we cannot operate without those. And I'm sure all hotel operators, GMs or IT employees are facing the same issues of interconnectivity, speed, difficulty of setup, and this is also what I faced with opening our first hotel, and I was a little bit disappointed and shocked seeing that why do we need to set up a system for a small boutique hotel where I need 15 people to be involved to make it happen. Yeah. Today's world, if you just think of ordering a cab, ordering laundry, the groceries, anything that we do, mobile banking, crypto payments, it takes you 1 to 2 seconds of completing tasks.
Yeah.
So going into this, setting up a system for a hotel operation, why does it take months? Why does it take 10 to 15 to 20 people, serious hours of manpower? And even though if it would take that much and it would give me the perfect solution, let's be it, but it's not. unfortunately, it's creating more headaches for everyone who is stakeholder, for the IT, for the financing department, for the GMs. So even for the guest experience, it is not seamless. So I think in terms of hospitality and tech and finance, we are way behind, unfortunately. There is a lot of room to improve, a lot of room to innovate. And I do see this as an opportunity. And when you visited us last time in the hotel, this is what we discussed, that now we are going to, with Vivera Hospitality, we are going to focus on tech, seriously into diving deep into tech and innovation, complemented by finance systems and, of course, decentralized ways of doing things in a new way in hospitality.
Thank you. Mark, when we were catching up before this, I know the guest experience is something that's absolutely top of the list for EMA Hospitality Group. And some of the things that Judith touched on, that use of tech, kind of we normally just think about it as customer-facing stuff, and that's something that's really come on in the last year or two out of necessity. From a guest point of view, you obviously need to look at where people are going and how they want to travel and how they want to stay. Tech is obviously going to be part of that, but tell us a little bit more about where you see the future traveler going in terms of their needs and wants.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really great to be here this morning. You know, there's three areas here that we're focusing on in a very strong way. Number one is obviously our digital platforms and the guest journey and making sure that we make it as easy as possible. And we've talked about that in the past in terms of our systems and processes, how we book. We've put in new websites. We're translating all our websites into different languages. We're making that whole platform a lot easier. Then the seamless journey into the hotel in terms of being able to check in online before you get to the hotel, upload all your documents. So we're really going through that process like a lot of hotel companies, and I think that's really important. It's important to make sure that's in place, but it's also important to make sure because a lot of our hotels are premium hotels, that we still have that very much that traditional journey at the same time. So we're making sure that both systems are in place. Future-wise, what we're seeing in terms of what people are looking for is both sustainability, number one, and number two, wellness. Wellness for us is, and you've seen the growth of our portfolio, particularly in terms of our resorts. Last year, coming straight out the back of COVID, we opened up a number of beach resorts, the Address Beach, Vida Mokoem, Address in Fujairah as well. So we see that, this was very much in our pipeline, but we're seeing that people are really wanting those retreats. And, for example, Fujairah for us has been extremely successful. In terms of people, not only domestic, wanting staycations and wanting to get away, but also very much in terms of the international traveler now seeking these resorts. And, and we've talked on a number of panels over the last couple of days and media interviews about the fact that we've got a number of resorts opening up, both here in the UAE and overseas. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We've actually, from a wellness point of view, we're taking this very seriously, and we've actually recruited a head of wellness for the group who comes from Palazzo Fuji, and we're really on a very fast-paced journey, looking at our resorts, but also looking at our more urban properties in terms of making sure that not just the spa menus, because spa is very traditional, but very much looking at holistic wellness. Looking around the journey of food, well-being, mental health, and also that traditional spa treatments alongside it. So we're looking at that whole program to make sure that that's what people are asking for. So we're working on that very quickly. And then finally, sustainability. We were on quite a fast-paced journey pre-COVID. COVID then sort of stopped us all because we had to keep ourselves safe. And there was a lot of use of plastics and keeping everything hygienically prepared. Now we're moving away from that, and we've got a very strong journey on sustainability, not purely in terms of conservation of water and electricity, because we've all done that. It's very much focused now on CSR initiatives, food initiatives in terms of food banks. So all of our hotels are registered with the UAE Food Bank, which is Sheikh Mohammed's initiative. So all of our overproduced food from banquets goes out to those initiatives, which is very important to help people. Also the food that goes to landfill sites, so really looking at composting and seeing how we do that. and then everything throughout the guest journey in terms of everything that we have in the rooms, focusing on the oceans and also the no plastic campaigns around no plastic bottles. So working with the DTCM, and we were one of the first hotels to start piloting and implementing the Dubai Can Initiative. So a lot of journey on sustainability that really focuses, because a lot of people are asking for that now, and they're looking at it at our hotels.
Yeah.
So very much the digital journey and keeping that in place, wellness very much focused for us, and then into sustainability overall.
Christopher, we'll come to you in a second, but Tim, this kind of ties in a lot with what you guys are doing as well. Resorts and moving out into different Emirates. So you've got the first resort in Ras Al Khaimah, and some more on the way. This all sounds like it ties in the need for space and natural surroundings, wellness, and the ability to look after yourself on a hotel stay. How does this tally up with your experiences and your plans going forward?
I can agree with a lot of what's been said already. I think all hotel companies are struggling with the same sort of challenges and the changes that have happened over the last couple of years. The pandemic has been a catalyst for some of that change, and it's taken trends that we already had and initiatives that were already running, and it's accelerated them. I mean, there was a saying in the hospitality industry previously that resorts were the investment of last resort. And that's absolutely not the case anymore. Demand for resorts has spiked tremendously over the past couple of years, and that's not a trend that's going away. And yes, wellness and sustainability is something I'd focus on perhaps a little bit more, but customers are absolutely demanding that. So when we talk about the future of hospitality, we can't really talk about that without talking about who the future of hospitality's guests are, because it's the guests and the market that drive what happens in our industry, because we respond to that market demand. So sustainability becomes incredibly important, and we've taken an initiative with Radisson Hotel Group to try and establish global hospitality sustainability basics, because it's an unregulated part of our industry, and any industry that operates like our hotel business does today and isn't regulated will eventually be regulated unless they self-regulate. So we're trying to set a framework to self-regulate what is right and what sustainability means in hospitality and in hotels. So I think that's at the forefront. Beyond that, we haven't talked about talent yet, and I guess you're probably going to come to it, but I have to say that is, for me, the number one issue facing hospitality today. How do we attract the right type of people into hotels, get the best talent in order to deliver all these things that we want to deliver as the future of hospitality? Am I too loud?
So no, I think that was me.
Forgive me, anyone with a hangover out there. But so yeah, I think the war for talent becomes increasingly important too.
Yeah. Well, we are going to come on to that later, so we'll pick that up again towards the end. We'll finally come to you, Christopher. Thank you for waiting so patiently. You obviously at Collier's, I mean, I get reports from you all the time telling me the trends of booking, the projections for where people want to stay, cities, resorts. Is it urban bookings? Is it Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah? Obviously, these guys see it day to day and their properties, but you have an overall view of stuff. So what we've talked about so far, is that something that rings true to you, or is there anything extra to what we've heard so far that you think needs to be addressed or taken note of?
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I think so far I agree with everything that's been said. In terms of new developments, what we're really seeing is more and more focus on certain key elements, and I don't really like the word lifestyle hotels because it's been overused for any hotel. You know, 90% of hotels are lifestyle hotels, but they're not really lifestyle hotels. But I think if you look at it, it's really about creating a destination, and a destination doesn't have to be, you know, Madinat Jumeirah, which is 1,000+ keys with integrated facilities. It can be just a building, a neighborhood destination that you want to go to because they have a good cafe, co-working space. You can stay there long-term, short-term. It's about connecting all these pieces together and not having them in silos as different developments. And that's where really you see on small scale and large scale successful developments really have been able to integrate this. And this comes back to payments as well. You know, if you use facilities that are adjacent to the hotel, maybe operated by the hotel, or, you know, outsourced F&B, how does that work in terms of charging it back to your room, for example, or paying for it? Is that a complicated process? So there's a lot of that that we're seeing. And it's, again, all about the lifestyle. And lifestyle is not just about the style, it's about the life. And we're really seeing now new hotels and concepts and brands coming into the market that are really overperforming in the market. We've seen some have been there for a really long time, like the Vida, for example, which is lifestyle on a 4-star, although it's probably competing more on the 5-star level. And then, you know, Radisson Red, for example, from Radisson Hotel Group, Curtin Hospitality with the House Hotel in Jeddah, and, you know, the 25 hours just around the corner here. If you go into the lobby, it's packed, it's full. Co-working people using the cafe. And I would probably say only 50% or less are actually staying in the hotel. It's become a meeting point. And that's what we're seeing now a lot in new developments as well. And I think, especially in the future, this will be very important, because we must not forget there is, at the moment in the GCC, 170,000 hotel keys in the pipeline. That's for the GCC. So the competition will definitely increase. Yep. The demand will increase as well, but the competition will increase. So it's very important to stay, you know, on the cutting edge on all these facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Judith, you run a new hotel of a bit of a different style. It's in an area in Al Jadaf, which I know when I first moved to Dubai, the Marriott Al Jadaf kind of stood on its own. Now it's surrounded by hotels of all different types, and 3, 4 stars, long stay places. Ink Hotel, just on the waterfront, is a kind of unique spot there as well. And seeing what you guys are doing is also something different to some of the other properties around. So one of the things, especially Christopher's mentioned, is that a lot of travelers want to stay in places that are not just integrated in terms of tech, but integrated into their surroundings. So you come and stay in a hotel and you have the city available to you, and you feel like you're part of that city when you're there. That's something I think you're trying to bring into Ink, and your guests have that, so maybe you're well placed to tell us a bit more about your experiences with those kind of travelers.
Yes, absolutely. So I really agree with looking at holistically, having your hotel integrated within your district or destination. When we started, we immediately looked at what is around us. There is an art and exhibition center. We immediately partner up with them and promote them to our guests, because this is adding value to the guest experience. Funny enough, there is a pet hotel just opened next door. So we are now collaborating with them, as we are pet-friendly brand and we are also sustainable. We really focus on collaborating with what's around us instead of outsourcing things from outside of the country or looking at things from other partners. First, we always have to look at what's around us, what business is there to collaborate with, and how we can support them, because some of them are also in a startup stage. So if we collaborate together, we grow together. Yep. And I think that is also adding value in terms of sustainability and focusing on the local startup scene. As you might know now, recently there are new visas introduced to Dubai. There is a lot of effort being put into bringing new startups and new brands and new businesses, and Dubai needs innovation. And innovation can be only created if you join efforts with others that are on the same mission. Yeah. And that's what we are trying to achieve there in Ink.
That's an interesting approach to it. Christopher, that kind of chimes in with what you were saying. One of the other things that I'm going to ask Tim about, but probably come to you after, is about conversion brands, which we're seeing more and more pop up. And there are reasons why that happens, which we'll ask you. Yesterday, Rotana announced Edge, which is their own version of that. Tim, it's a big part of your future for Radisson Hotel Group, I think. And there's some really exciting properties in Saudi and elsewhere that are kind of true to that. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about why conversion brands are popular right now and what they bring to you and what you bring to those properties.
Sure. I mean, the last couple of years, I think if you've got a hotel which is not part of a strong brand, it's been more difficult because the global pipeline of business that a brand can deliver is self-evident that it provides to you a level of security, particularly in a difficult period. So our response to that was to come up with a brand called Radisson Individuals. I mean, it's my job to talk about Radisson, but the trend is in the marketplace. And you can see now the response that different brands have to that. Ours is driven exactly to have individual hotels which are unique in their own right, offer a fantastic service and something special about them, but aren't necessarily right for a core brand. They don't fit into the corporate box. And we have a solution for that now, which allows hotels to quickly convert and benefit from a global pipeline and the digital platform and all the other stuff that a global brand comes with, without the need to invest significantly to meet those global brand standards. And I think that's a response we see because our business, our sector, still remains quite fragmented. And that fragmentation means that there's probably going to be more consolidation in our business in the future, but a medium-term response to that is, of course, conversion brands, which solve that solution for some operators and some individual hotels.
Okay. Mark, Emaar Hospitality doesn't operate with as many core brands as Radisson does on different levels, but you also are broadening the horizons with Vida and Amal Cohen, for example, which is a very different proposition to what anybody else has done, certainly in that emirate, but also outside of the UAE as well. And we couldn't really talk about the future of hospitality in the region without touching on Saudi Arabia, for example, which is not the only growth market. Egypt, people always seem to be moving into Egypt, and a lot of growth in Africa as well. I think Tim also seeing that. Tell us a little bit more about the future for Emaar's brands and where you're going and why that makes sense for Emaar as well.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate in the fact that all of our brands have originated and they're homegrown here in the UAE. Address is very well known, obviously now, and it continues to become well known with the destinations that we're actually putting it in, both here in the UAE and actually overseas. The Address Beach, for example, for us was a great location because the beaches naturally attracts a little bit more European business. So whilst Address originally was very well known from a GCC perspective, it wasn't known outside. So the fact that the beach properties are now attracting more European business is starting to get our brands a lot more well known. Vida for us, and you mentioned Umm Al-Quwaim, I think that was the time that it really started to spring that brand to life in terms of the fact that we'd had Vida Downtown and we'd had Emirates Hills and the Creek Harbour, but then taking it to a new Emirate and building it into that resort format worked very well for the brand. And then that took us overseas into Bahrain, and launching the Vida in Bahrain was incredibly important to us because that's part of a mixed-use development as well, where an Address is coming there as well. So Vida then transpires a little bit further in terms of moving into Egypt, into the north coast, our development up there in Mirassi, and the Vida Mirassi Marina will debut early next year. So that brand's really come to life and growing. Palace brand, obviously the Palace Downtown for us was a unique property on its own. The fact that we're now moving into Fujairah, our second resort property in Fujairah, and in the heart of sort of the city of Fujairah on the Corniche there, the Palace brand coming to life there really complements sort of the culture and heritage of Fujairah and their vision in terms of making sure that comes there. So that brand's also starting to move, and we'll see another Palace closer to home in terms of the Creek Harbour. So all of our brands are moving actually quite fast. And then with our Manzil brand, we've got focuses around that. So there's a lot of interest in not only bringing the brands to life here in the UAE, but also now taking them overseas. And we've talked in the last couple of days about the fact that, after Istanbul, we saw Bahrain moving quite quickly with a Vida and Address. Egypt with another Address and a Vida, and then into Saudi Arabia with 3 of our brands coming very fast now. So we do see the evolution of those brands coming to life pretty fast now.
Thanks, Mark. Christopher, are there any territories and markets that you see growing faster than others, or that people need to be looking at to make sure they're there, whether they have their flag in the sand, so to speak?
Yep, thanks, Paul. That's actually a good question. I would say I don't really have an answer. That's maybe a simple answer, because every single destination in the Middle East is being looked at.
Yep.
From the smallest in the middle of nowhere to the big cities, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, Jeddah, Muscat, etc. So I think it's more about what's being developed in the different locations. And I think, of course, the big cities, you'll always see the urban developments coming up, urban hotels, mixed-use developments, etc. Beachfront hotels, if the city is lucky to have a beach. But we're really seeing the trend of exploring the more remote areas. And that's more with experimental type of tourism, can be tents, lodges, caravans. We've seen Hatta here being very successful, for example. We've always had the desert resorts, which are more built structures, though, in UAE. And we're seeing those trends, growing further and even taking different shapes. Bubble tents, all sorts of hard and soft type of development structures. And what that really does, it really promotes a country and a destination without having to put too much investment into it. Because these developments, they tend to be quite small and decent size for a developer to develop, especially if it is more of tents or caravans or more alternative type of lodging accommodation.
Yeah.
So we're really seeing those, coming up in the mountains in Saudi Arabia, Al-Baha, Abha, Taif, in the desert as well.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of those type of developments.
Yeah. Tim, I'm not going to ask you if you're opening a Radisson caravan park, but we couldn't talk about the future without talking about talent. We'll bring it back to that now, because I know, again, when we've spoken before, and also catching up before this, like you say, you don't have a future if you don't have the talent to make it work. So how tricky is it, or how do you manage to get the talent for those future type of travelers that their tastes are changing? Is it hard to make sure you have that base of people coming through that are ready for the next phase of guests?
Yeah, I mean, the industry as a whole has a question to answer there. And how do we promote ourselves? How do we position ourselves? What are our expectations in terms of people working in our hotels? What's a reasonable working hour? What's a reasonable wage? How do we facilitate that? Is it okay today that you have a fixed rota? Probably not. How can we use digitization to have a more flexible approach to fit in with people's lifestyles?
Yeah.
So there's an enormous question to answer, and I'm sure everybody on this panel is doing something different around it. I know we are. But unless we get that right, and the organizations that do are going to benefit because they're going to be able to attract talent and retain it. Because, of course, we know how expensive it is to bring new people into our business, but it's even more expensive if you lose them. Because you've invested in that talent, and you've brought them along, and they're working, and you're delivering something, and then, of course, they leave. So retaining talent is equally as important. So that's a whole separate subset, I suppose, from this conversation. But as I said earlier, I don't think you can talk about the future of hospitality without talking about the future of talent and how we deliver guest expectations moving forwards. And we have, right now, staff shortages, employee shortages in our industry, which are significant here in the region, but nowhere near as bad as they're crisis level in many European countries.
Yep.
And I think we only need to look at that to understand that that's a problem that is probably coming our way. And how do we address it, with those early warning signs now?
Yeah. Judith, obviously you work with new talent coming up. How do you prepare the students that you have for not just working in an Inc hotel, but when they go and work at an Emaar or a Radisson or Hilton or Marriott?
A good question. I believe it's the other way around. not just trying to develop the new talent, but trying to educate the existing industry how to work with them.
Okay.
And how to welcome them, because they are a completely different age group and they think completely differently as we see the industry today or as we experience it.
Yep.
And from our side, of course, working with new talent, we try to prepare them and coach them and integrate them to what does it mean internship, getting your first job, joining into the hospitality industry. But what I'm noticing is that the other side is not ready for them most of the time. So the hotels, the brands, the departments, the HR departments, the training and development departments, been following systems and structures that's been there 20, 30, 40 years. These kids are new. They completely thinking differently. They live in a world of cryptos and NFTs. Are we ready for that? Are they going to be able to bring their ideas and talent into the business?
Yep.
And remember, on the other side, your new customer, your future customer is also coming from the same page, from the same background, from the same motivation and understanding. So it is a matter of bringing in the new talent that is having the same ground with the new customer. And whoever is in between the existing talents or employees, they need education.
Yeah.
So actually, the existing industry people right now needs more education than the new incomers.
Yes.
That's my take on it.
Thanks, Judith. Mark, another thing, especially in this region, there's always a lot of talk of local talent, whether that's Emirati or Saudi nationals in Saudi Arabia, which is a big focus for the kingdom, is to make sure that their citizens are involved in the hospitality industry, not just enjoying it. How do you make sure that you can take care of that side of things as well as your traditional students coming from hospitality schools?
Yeah, it's a great question actually, and it's something that we're very focused on as a group overall. In terms of amortization, it sort of coexists also with sort of how we develop our leadership teams to operate hotels. So, we very much focus on leadership at that level to come from within, so internal talent. The fact that we're growing and we're opening a number of hotels helps us because it gives us opportunities for our teams at positions 2 and 3 to move up, and we give areas of responsibility. We're lucky that quite often our hotels are, in some cases, are in a cluster area, so we're able to bring in someone who looks after a cluster and then give opportunities to team members coming up who might not have always had opportunities from within. So this is very much focused in terms of really making sure we give stretched responsibilities and showcasing, because when you give people opportunities, they really will take it to the very far level. In terms of amortization, going back to that, we have a very key program within the group to focus around that subject area. We have, and one of the examples of someone that has made the success is our general manager looking after address fountain views, Mohammed Kadora. He progressed through our internal talent, and he's now looking after this mixed-use development of 3 towers, 800 units. So it really showcases that ability. We also have our internal talent program in terms of the hire program as well, and this is really focusing on women in leadership and making sure that our focus around that 50-50 goal of ours continues. And when you look at some of our key hotels at the moment, 3 or 4 of our hotels are run by females who are really taking, probably some of our top properties who are doing such a great job. So there's such a focus on women in leadership, there's focus on amortization, there's focus on internal talent, and then I agree with Tim overall in trying to find the talent coming into the hotel to then fill up as we open up new hotels, as we have new positions. That is tough.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're focusing on in terms of not necessarily looking at just purely hospitality experience, but people who have the real mindset in order to really look after our customers in that journey. So we're having a lot of fun around that area.
Tim, in Saudi, it's a huge growth area for Radisson. How are you finding the country itself and the people within it embracing what you guys are doing?
Yeah, we've got more than 20 hotels to open there in the next couple of years, and how do we find people to run them, right? And I want to challenge some of the comments that I've had given to me over the past couple of years anyway, about Saudi talent. And one of the things that people said was that Saudis don't want to work in hospitality. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense, you know. And then when you actually, so what we did is we held some open days and we invited Saudi nationals and Saudi citizens to come to the open days and explore, find out a little bit more about hospitality and what it means to work in a hotel, and actually talk to them. And of course, they came with some of the preconceived ideas that everybody has, or a lot of people have about hospitality, that it's hard, menial work and unsociable hours and poor pay. And we were able to balance that and say, well, it can be an enormous amount of fun. It can give you flexibility to do other things in your life. And it means you belong to part of something and you can make a difference. And that, critically, is what a lot of people really are looking for. And consequently, we've got more than 45% of our front office teams are not just Saudis, but Saudi ladies that are working in our hotels. So I think Saudiization is a very critical structure for the ministry in Saudi. They really want to have Saudis engaging in tourism and hospitality. But it's also down to us. How do we represent tourism, hospitality, and hotels as a great place to work? And in our experience, we've been able to get above 40% of our employees, Saudi nationals in hotels. As I mentioned, front desk, mainly ladies. And for us, it's been a generally positive experience. Certainly no more negative than any other, let's say that.
Christopher, before we take some questions from the crowd, the one area of hospitality and hotels that anybody listening or anybody on the panel should make sure they're part of for the next 5-10 years, what do you think they should be looking at?
I think touching upon some of the things we already discussed is to integrate a lot of things such as wellness and eco and experiences into what is already the hotel concept.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience?
Hi guys, I'm Josh Corder. I'm the Deputy Editor of the Hospitality Group. I work for the pool. My question is for Mark. As a Dubai-based brand focused on hiring Emiratis, do you have plans to bring Emiratis into your international properties, or is it a target only bound to the UAE?
Morning, Josh. Nice to see you. Absolutely. We, in all of our properties internationally, as because they're regionally adapting, certainly there was a focus. If we have an opportunity where one of our Emirati leadership team wants to go and look after and head up those properties, for sure we're very adaptive to that as well. So yes, the answer is simple answer, yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh.
And what a lovely panel we've got. While I was seeing my agenda for the day, I thought that this is one panel I have to go to. My name is Pradeep Manjrekar, and I represent ADECO. And it was very heartening to hear talent as a very important element in your discussion today. My question to all you respected panelists is, what is that one quality that you look for talent which do not come from the hospitality background? And if each of you could just tell us in short. Yeah.
So if there's one quality you look for in a new recruit or in a student, what do they need?
I would say if I have to pick only one, it would be imagination.
Okay, Tim?
I think it's impossible to say one talent or one quality. I mean, I think probably you'd look for the openness in terms of attitude. I guess that would be the one I'd go for.
Mark, can you do it?
Oh, it's good, good one. I see actually many people who are not in our industry, and I keep, when I fill up the car with petrol and you've got someone who's completely engaged and got a massive smile, come and work with us, because there's amazing people out there who will really look after our guests.
Christopher?
I think we're looking for someone driven, definitely, and someone flexible as well, because you can't have someone stuck in a box that just does X, Y, Z. They need to, I think imagination was a good word as well. They need to think outside the box and and be flexible to help wherever they need to.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks to ATM. Thank you, Judith, Tim, Mark, and Christopher for your time and expertise. I'm Paul Clifford. Enjoy the rest of the day and tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.